The old house loomed before them, a dark silhouette against the moonless sky. Wind howled through the ancient trees, their branches like skeletal fingers reaching out. 5 friends, giddy with a mixture of excitement and fear, stood at the edge of the overgrown yard. It was Halloween night, and the dare to spend an hour in Blackwood Manor was too tempting to resist.
Are you sure about this?
Emily whispered, her voice trembling. Her breath formed a white cloud in the chilly air.
Don't be such a scaredy cat.
Mark scoffed, though his bravado couldn't hide the tremor in his own voice. He pushed open the creaking gate, its rusty hinges groaning in protest. They walked up the cracked pathway, each step crunching on dead leaves. The air grew colder, the darkness deeper, as if the house itself was sucking the light away. This was a place where shadows whispered and secrets hid. The front door hung open, a gaping maw inviting them in. Musty air, thick with the smell of decay, wafted out. Inside, cobwebs draped everything like macabre decorations. Dust motes danced in the faint moonlight, filtering through grimy windows.
This place gives me the creeps.
Jessica whispered, her hand finding her boyfriend David's arm. He squeezed her hand reassuringly, but his eyes darted nervously around the darkened hallway. A sudden gust of wind slammed a door shut, somewhere deep inside the house. The sound echoed through the silent rooms.
It's just the wind,
Mark said, trying to sound brave, but his face was pale in the gloom. They ventured further into the house, their footsteps echoing on the wooden floor. As they explored the house, the atmosphere grew heavier. The temperature seemed to drop, sending shivers down their spines. They heard whispers, soft and indistinct, coming from the walls. Once, they all swore they saw a fleeting shadow move at the edge of their vision. They entered a grand old library, its shelves lined with dusty volumes. A fire had long burned out in the fireplace, leaving behind only ashes and a lingering smell of smoke. As they examined a shelf of ancient books, a book suddenly flew off the shelf behind them, landing with a loud thump on the floor.
What was that?
Emily shrieked, jumping back in fright. They spun around, hearts pounding, but saw nothing. The book lay open on the floor, its pages filled with strange symbols and diagrams. Determined to find a rational explanation, they began to explore the house more thoroughly. They discovered a hidden room behind a bookshelf, its walls covered in faded newspaper clippings. The clippings told the story of the house's former owner, a wealthy occultist who had vanished without a trace. He had been rumored to dabble in dark magic, summoning entities from beyond.
This is creepy. Maybe we should leave.
David said, his voice hushed. But Mark was too caught up in the mystery. He read aloud from a faded diary they found in the room, its pages filled with rambling entries about rituals and sacrifices. As he read, the wind outside seemed to pick up, rattling the windows and sending shivers down their spines. Suddenly the house seemed to come alive. Doors slammed shut, trapping them in the library. Objects flew across the room as if propelled by unseen hands. The temperature plummeted, and the air grew thick with the stench of decay.
We have to get out of here.
Shouted Jessica, her voice high with panic. They pounded on the door, but it wouldn't budge. It was as if the house itself was holding them prisoner. Mark frantically searched for another way out, but every door and window was securely fastened. They were trapped. Terror clawed at their throats, choking off their screams. The lights flickered and died, plunging them into absolute darkness. Screams filled the air, echoing through the house. They huddled together in the darkness, each terrified by the unseen presence that surrounded them. Something cold and slimy brushed against Emily's cheek.
Ah!
She screamed again, pushing away from the unseen horror. They scrambled blindly, desperate to escape the unseen terror that stalked them in the dark. Minutes stretched into an eternity. They were lost in a maze of dark hallways, the house seemingly shifting and changing around them. The air grew thick with a palpable sense of dread, suffocating them. Then, just when they thought their time had run out, they stumbled upon a faint light emanating from under a door. With renewed hope, they threw their combined weight against the door and burst into a small, dusty room. It was a servant's quarters, long abandoned. A single window stood open, letting in the fresh night air and the pale light of the moon. It was a beacon of hope in the midst of their terror.
this way.
Shouted David, already climbing out the window. One by one, they followed him, scrambling over the window ledge and dropping to the soft earth below. They ran without looking back, their lungs burning, their hearts pounding in their chests. They didn't stop until they reached the safety of the road, the haunted house a distant silhouette in the moonlight. As they gasped for breath, counting heads, a chilling realization dawned on them. One of their friends was missing. Emily was gone.
Emily!
Mark shouted, his voice hoarse with terror. But only the wind answered him, whistling through the trees like a mournful cry. They never saw Emily again. And the haunted house on the hill remained, a silent testament to the night their friend vanished into the darkness. Some say that if you listen closely on a windy Halloween night, you can still hear her screams echoing through the empty halls.